Welcome back to the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. This is the MMA Takeover with Keith Shillan. I am the host. Of course, I am Keith Shillan. We have so much to talk about, not that much time. So let me just give you a rundown. Before we do, I just want to let you know that this show is also being aired on the Sports Talk radio channel, which is a 24-hour sports talk channel where you can check it out. We have us at Loudmouth have the Monday through Friday slot from 12 to 1, plus on Saturday, Sundays, we have a couple of replays of the original shows. This show is the only show on the network, which I'm proud to say, that airs twice a week, 2 different episodes. This obviously is the Monday episode. You can also check us out on Friday. You can check us out on everywhere you find podcasting, but also on the Sports Talk radio. So what the rundown of the show will be today, the first segment, I'm just going to give my thoughts specifically about UFC 246, the return of Conor McGregor, all my thoughts beyond Conor McGregor. The second segment, we have special guest Nolan King from MMAJunkie. He's a great journalist. He'll give his thoughts, And then the third section or segment, when we come back, I'm going to talk about all the possible opponents for Conor McGregor next. It was a topic that seemed like every journalist was asking, whether it be him, whether it be asking Dana White. Everyone wants to know who's next. I mean, it's, you go to any forum, you go to SureDog forums, you go check out Facebook forums, Twitter, it's what everybody's saying. Everyone wants to know who should Conor fight next. It's debate. I came up with 12 opponents, and I'm actually going to rank them. And it's actually going to probably surprise you how I rank them. But before we do, let's talk about what happened this past Saturday night at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was the return of Conor McGregor after being out for 15 months. The last time we saw him was at UFC 229 against Khabib Nurmagomedov, where he challenged for the lightweight title. It did not go his way. He got dominated throughout the fight and eventually submitted in the 4th round. And then afterwards, he actually got jumped by Khabib. I don't mean to laugh there, but I mean how it was such a bad night for him. He ended up getting jumped after he fought. But a lot has gone on in those last 15 months. We have seen Conor McGregor get in trouble. He's spoken on record that the money has got to him, the fame has got to him, the kind of, he's got the, as they say, the FU money, where he doesn't have to listen to anybody. After the Floyd Mayweather fight, after the Khabib fight, all these payouts he had, and he enjoyed himself. Unfortunately, Conor does not know how to enjoy himself without getting in trouble. We had, stories coming out of Miami with him. He got an altercation with basically a citizen, a fat fan that wanted to take a picture with him or wanted to take a picture of him, and Conor and his cronies seized the phone, snatched it right out of his hand and took off with it. And there's reports that he vandalized, some people say he stole it. He ended up getting arrested for strong-arm robbery. There was a video that I still have a hard time believing it's him. It just doesn't seem real, where Conor McGregor actually punched a elderly man, a 60-year man. This is a former 2-weight world champion, a 31 years old, a peak athlete, reaching over and striking the old man. I guess the story is that he went into a Dublin bar, had his proper 12 whiskey, wanted to give shots with people, was trying to have a good time. I'm assuming he was probably drunk. And apparently the elderly male did not want to take shots with him, whatever the reason is. And Conor did not sit with Conor too well. And he reaches back and punches the old man. And the old man, give him credit, the guy took it like a gangster. Like, didn't even fall off the stool. And then, of course, the worst one of all this is that he has 2 ongoing sexual assault allegations that's being investigated by the police in Ireland. There's not many information on that. He was somewhat asked about it by Errol Hawani of ESPN this past week during the build-up to UFC 246. During the week, he's had a sit-down 45-minute interview, kind of a softball in the right environment where they knew it was coming. Errol, it was so bad that Errol didn't even say the word sexual assault. He said allegations, I think, or kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of grouped it all together with anything that might have been thrown at him, any negativity. And then there was a man from the Toronto, was it the Toronto Star or something like that? A Canadian journalist that asked a question during the press conference, got booed off stage where he was trying to ask Conor about the sexual assault allegations. Donald Cerrone actually jumped in and didn't let him answer. Dana White didn't let him answer. Something that I thought was a poor taste. I mean, it's what a press conference is for. And when I say poor taste, I mean poor taste that they jumped in, that he got booed, not the reporter. I agree with him. Like, that's the setting, that's his job. We talked that of, well, we covered that last week. So, but Donald Cerrone had a chance to beat Conor McGregor, and he didn't. Conor McGregor stepped in the cage and smashed him in 40 seconds. That flawless victory. The total strikes was 19 significant strikes for Conor McGregor, 0 for Donald Cerrone. And in those 40 seconds, no one's talking about the controversy anymore. The people are coming out. The fans are coming out. All those fans who, don't really follow sport, they're just casuals. They might know Conor McGregor. They become fans of Conor McGregor. They're the ones that, like, if you're around at a party, they're the ones who got the big mouth and saying stupid stuff that, they obviously don't follow any of the sport. They don't know about the sexual assault allegations or anything like that. The guys who go on Facebook and Twitter and spell his name with Connor instead of Conor. Like, they spell his name wrong. Those people came out. But Conor McGregor is a huge star. In 40 seconds, he wiped away 15 months of just stupid mistakes. Has he changed as a person? He seemed very humble on the build up to the fight. Shook hands with Cerrone. It was not the normal what we see at Conor McGregor. He went into the post-fight press conference, very similar attitude, was not very complimentary of Donald Cerrone, even complimentary of some of the other guys in the division. Talked about having to make improvements. Talking about that it was just his night. So really different. But I want to talk about why I was impressed besides the 40-second. What I was impressed by Conor McGregor is that he had his back against the wall. I mean, Donald Cerrone, we spoke about this on the last episode. Donald Cerrone was picked for this fight for 4 reasons. He has a big name. He was a threat to Conor McGregor. That he was also a winnable fight for Conor McGregor. And last, I just thought he deserved it based on his history in the UFC, most wins, most stoppages, most performance bonuses. He's the ultimate culmination. He deserved it. But the big thing stood out that this was a winnable fight. And if Conor lost this fight to Donald Cerrone, this would have been the worst loss in his UFC career. And it would have been his 3rd loss in a row. When I say loss, I'm counting the Floyd Mayweather down. A lot of people won't count that, but I'm saying, but if you paid for a Conor McGregor pay-per-view and you're a Conor McGregor fan, it'd be the 3rd time in a row you paid for a pay-per-view that Conor McGregor is featured, whether it be boxing or MMA, and he lost. So he might have lost some fans. You know how it is. If you're not winning, not many people are going to stick with you. So his back was against the wall. And he won. He hit a home run. He hit if it was a Mortal Kombat game, they'd say flawless victory afterwards. The narrative heading into it was if Donald Cerrone could get the fight into the later period, later rounds, I should say, get it later into the fight, every minute that went on, the advantage would start going to Donald Cerrone. If Donald Cerrone could get takedowns with his grappling game, he could get a submission. If he could, survive a flurry that's not landing his strikes, landing his high kick, all these things with his narrative. But then the people who were supporting Conor McGregor and showing the weaknesses in Donald Cerrone, well, what's been Donald Cerrone classically known for? Struggling. He's known for struggling with southpaws. Conor McGregor, check. He's a southpaw. He struggled with guys who like to work the body. He's been hurt to the body. Oh, Conor McGregor is an excellent body striker. I mean, ask Chad Mendes. He struggles with fast starters. Conor McGregor might be the fastest starter in MMA. And what I mean by that is, like, He doesn't need to feel out his opponents. He gets his distance. He knows his distance. He knows the triggers. He studied the opponent. His step back knockout of Jose Aldo is proof of that. The first punch he threw, that he had the timing of Jose Aldo perfect. And the fourth thing was that Donald Cerrone gets so close, but when he gets in the biggest fights, he always loses. So there were 4 things that were going against him. 4 big advantages. That's why Conor McGregor was such a favorite. However, he had all the pressure on him. He's supposed to win. Donald Cerrone's becoming a bigger star just by stepping in the cage with Conor McGregor. His stock is rising. So Conor, all the pressure's on Conor. Can he deliver? Can he come through? He hasn't fought 15 months. We haven't seen him win in any fights since Eddie Alvarez. He beat Eddie Alvarez 3 years early, over 3 years early. So all the pressure. And what does he do? He dodges Donald Cerrone in 40 seconds. Now, I know what the narrative is going to be. Well, the people who don't want to give Conor credit. Well, Cerrone's lost 3 in a row. He's kind of a guy that will win one, lose one. He's kind of a step back. Don't get too excited. Well, that is true. He has lost 3 in a row. He has struggled. But let's look who he's lost to. His 6 last losses have been the best bets. Let's go to lightweight. Tony Ferguson. They went to the 3rd round. He didn't stop. So he didn't knock out Cerrone. He didn't submit him. The fight was actually stopped when Cerrone couldn't see when he blew his nose. It was technically stopped at 5 minutes of the 2nd round, but they were about to stop the 3rd round. Justin Gaethje and Cerrone's a guy with crazy attacks, high pressure. Justin Gaethje is a guy, big power puncher, big long kicks, the violence king. Well, it took him 4 minutes and 18 seconds to take out Donald Cerrone, not 40 seconds. Tony Ferguson can do it in 40 seconds. Well, let's change divisions. Jorge Masvidal, the hot guy, new kid on the block, one of the best strikers, possibly the best striker in the welterweight division. I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but it went to the 2nd round when he took out Cerrone. McGregor took him out 40 minutes. Robbie Lawler, former champion, one of the king of, the violence guy, the guy who's mean and big power puncher. And he's just, one of the greatest welterweights of all time. He went to a decision with Cerrone. He couldn't take him out. Darren Till, a guy that is, huge, now fighting at middleweight. So basically you have a blown up lightweight in Donald Cerrone facing now a true middleweight in Darren Till. And it took him 4 minutes and 20 seconds, not 40 seconds like Conor McGregor did. And the last one, how about Leon Edwards? Leon Edwards is very hard, a guy that could get a title shot sooner rather than later. And he went to decision over 5 rounds. He went 25 minutes, and Leon Edwards couldn't take out Donald Cerrone in 25 minutes. But Conor McGregor took him out in 40 seconds. So what does that to say? Say what you want. You can kind of pump your brakes on Conor McGregor if you want, but don't pump it too bad. He took out Donald Cerrone in 40 seconds. So last week I asked you guys to tweet at me. I asked you if you guys liked the nice Conor or did you like the Conor that trash talk. I kind of got mixed results. I want you guys to tweet at me again. The question this week I want to ask is Conor McGregor the best striker in the welterweight division? I know a lot of people would say no. I'm going to give you my answer right now. I think he is. I think he's deadly. I think he showed it against Cerrone. I think he's got power. I think some people give it to Stephen Thompson. I can't give it to Stephen Thompson after he got knocked out by Anthony Pettis recently. I can't do that. And then obviously Jorge Masvidal will be a very popular pick. Also, I can see maybe someone going to Bellator if I want to think outside the box, go to like a Michael Page or even a Douglas Lima. That's fine. But I'm going to say that I think the best striker in the welterweight division is Conor McGregor, and Conor McGregor is no choice. No surprise. I've been all in on Conor McGregor. I picked him as my fighter of the year. Is my prediction for 2020. He's off to a very good start. If he fights like he wants to a couple more times, that'll be even better for him. He gets to know a couple more fights in 2020. So I'm running out of time in this segment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Nolan King of MMAJunkie. Please stick around. Welcome back to the MMA Takeover with Keith Shillan. I am the host, of course. I am Keith Shillan. We just spoke in the last segment about the king of MMA. So now I'm going to go to the king of MMA media. He works for MMAJunkie. He is, of course, Nolan King. Nolan, what's up, my man?
How's it going, man? I'm a little tired after a long night, grinding. Got a lot of content to put out today too, but I'm hanging in there, man. I can't complain. We had some moments to talk about last night. It's not like I'm coming on here and I'm going to have to make a lot of stuff up because I think we have a lot that we can cover in a short amount of time here.
Yeah, so of course, the whole first segment, all we did was talk about Conor McGregor. He's the biggest star in the sport. When he comes around, I don't know about you, but my phone blows up. The people that don't watch the fights, they watch once, they ask me who to bet, who's going to win, blah, blah, blah. Everyone comes out of the woodworks. The arena was full of celebrities. I mean, Tom Brady himself was in the arena.
Oh.
So let me ask you this question. It's been a long time since we've seen Conor step in the cage. Does the UFC need Conor McGregor?
It's funny you say this. I actually was having a conversation about this with somebody else the other day, and I guess it depends on what your definition of need is. Like, would they be a functioning organization without him? Yes, but the amount of eyeballs that he brings is like none other. I mean, it's like catastrophically bigger than anything else, any other draw in the sport. I think it's one of those things where he brings in a lot of eyes, he brings in a lot of money, and look at last night, right? Look at the card last night. Look what we got to experience. He was fighting. It was a rebound fight for him. He was fighting a guy who was coming off 2 losses, and look at the buzz that came with it. So, the UFC would survive without him, but he fought Nate Diaz twice, when he fought Eddie Alvarez, when he fought Khabib, when he fought Jose Aldo, when he fought Chad Mendes. So, we need those. I need those. Knowing what they are now, I need those in my life.
Yeah. So obviously he had a spectacular performance, 40 seconds. I picked him to win by knockout in the first round, but I didn't expect to be that dominant. The total strikes was 19-0. So let me rephrase the first question. Does the UFC need Conor winning?
I think they need him winning at least somewhat. I think a single loss isn't going to hurt him. We've seen this twice before. This is the second time where he's coming off a loss. It seems like his momentum's coming to a halt, and then he goes out and wins again. And people are talking about all these other matchups that are going to be big again. This is very similar to the second Diaz fight. I feel like everybody was like, "Oh, Diaz beat him the first time. We'll watch it. We'll like it. It's Conor." But what sense does this make? I'm not as excited about seeing this again for no reason. And then it turned out to be a great fight, and everybody forgot about it, and it helped Conor go into his second title fight. This is very similar to that. I think that this put, some truth into what he was saying about his preparation with Khabib. It's put some question marks, like, was this the Conor that showed up last time and Khabib was just that good? Or is this a whole nother level of Conor? And the fact that this is the first fight that I believe he's, like, truly prepared to be a welterweight size for. We saw his lats at the weigh-ins. They're huge. He looked massive out there. He looked strong. So that adds a whole nother element that he has all these other matchups that he can fight at a more natural weight class.
So there's a lot to unravel there. You talked about that, this might be the best we've seen him. You said especially at 170. So where does this performance, it was flawless. This is like that Mortal Kombat, flawless victory. Where does this rank compared to the other performance with the Jose Aldo, the Eddie Alvarez? Like, is this his best performance ever? If not, where do you rank it?
I think it's going to be right up there. It kind of had the best of both worlds. People with the Aldo fight, it was one exchange. People said, "Oh, we didn't see enough." It wasn't. We didn't get to see a Conor flow. It was just the first punch, whatever. And then you look at the Eddie Alvarez fight, and it was kind of a calculated destruction. This was kind of both. It was like calculated explosion. He came out there, got it done quickly, but he showed – we saw a lot in that 40 seconds. It wasn't he just went out there and landed one punch and that was it. But he was also so destructive, and I think it could very well be the best Conor that we've seen. Again, it leaves those question marks, which is what we need to promote his fights. We need these questions to be answered, whether they're matchups, whether they're questions about skills, advancements. And he's always been good at doing that. People have always doubted him or believed in him and argued about that, and that's what makes the fights good, and that's what happened here again.
So you talked about how good he looked and how, spectacular. But he said himself to Joe Rogan, "Oh, I had a little layoff. I'm not back. I'm back, but I'm not totally back yet." He said in the press conference that he felt a little rusty. He said that the reason why that first left hand was, he said, "Well, about 15 months off, a little rusty." I mean, if that's a little rusty, I mean, geez. And if that's not him on his game, then the rest of the division, whether 155 or 170, is in trouble. But he did say, "I'm not totally back." So obviously he's back in the cage. We both think he looked better than ever. Let me ask this question. What does he have to do to get back what he had? Because there was a moment where he'd say things, he'd kind of will it into existence. He said, "I'm going to knock Jose Aldo's head clean off it." And then the first punch, he knocks Jose Aldo out. He says, "I'm going to be a double champion." He does a double champion. He did everything we didn't think he could do. So what does he have to do to be back, to be the king again? What does he have to do?
That's a really good question.
Does he have to win a title? Does he have to be Habib? What is it?
I mean, I think that the Habib thing would be huge. I mean, imagine if he went out there and he beat Habib in a rematch, that would be like the ultimate. I'm gonna prove you all wrong. I went from my lowest low and ended up at my highest high. I mean, that would be like McGregor's the attribute you just talked about, where he proved people wrong. That would be that magnified for him to come from such a low to a high. But regardless, I mean, there's other things out there too. He could become, if he became the welterweight world champ, he'd be the first fighter, I believe, to hold 3 belts from different weight classes in the UFC. And I mean, again, that's an accolade. Listen to him talk about Cerrone's records yesterday, before the fight, even after the fight. He talks about how having those records would mean a lot to him. So I think there's still a lot that he can achieve out there. It's just a matter of what he focuses on, tells everyone about, and then goes out and accomplishes.
So you seem to be probably in the same camp that I'm in, that he looked phenomenal, that it was,
Yes.
it was more Conor winning than Cerrone losing. But let's flip that. There's a lot of people saying, hey, he beat a guy, always been the second-tier fighter. Cerrone has all these records, but they're more longevity records, willingness to fight on 3 weeks' notice, these kind of things. Kind of like Eli Manning stats, you know what I mean? Not the, greatest of all time type thing. Every time Cerrone's had the big fights, he's lost. He got smashed up by Tony Ferguson, smashed up by Justin Gaethje. Now, he's been knocked out 3 times in a row. And then the narrative is, well, if you have a southpaw, that's bad for Cerrone. If you get someone who works the body, that's bad for Cerrone. You get someone who's good at starting quick, that's bad for Cerrone. Well, Conor McGregor is check for all 3 of these. So how much of it is just facing the perfect opponent?
So that was my mindset going into this. I really didn't think that there was whatever the odds were. I think McGregor was like a 3-1 favorite or a 4-1 favorite. I didn't really see a route that Cerrone would win this fight. I thought the chances were very low that he would. Like you said, styles make fights, and this was an awful style matchup. So I kind of had expectations that Conor would roll, that this was the best matchup for him, and we would see that. But he still exceeded my expectations in what he did. I mean, he did some things out there that, like from the start. I mean, the waist to, like, whatever you want to call it, the knee that was kind of his hip that hit him in the face, and then the jumping shoulders. So for me, yes, it was the perfect matchup, but he was still able to exceed those expectations that I think myself, I don't want to speak for you, but I think you probably thought that this would not necessarily be the best fights for Cerrone. And I just think he went out there, and even the best expectation that the experts had, he exceeded it, which is, I mean, you couldn't ask for him to do more than that.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody was banging the drum harder for Conor McGregor than I was. I mean, we did the all-Anglo show. I picked the first round knockout. So I guess technically by predictions, I was perfect. But I didn't expect that. I mean, shoulder shot. I mean, I've been watching MMA since UFC 6, and I've never seen shoulder shots is something just kind of getting busy, kind of ignore someone. I've never seen anybody, like, seriously hurt by him. I mean, and this is what this guy does. It's incredible. It's kind of like the pendulum. I've heard you talk about the pendulum that swings too much. And people who hate Conor will try to say things that, he's not that good. He's, all he has is the left hand. That was a narrative that was going around. And it's like, this guy's one of the best strikers, maybe the best striker in the entire UFC, entire MMA. And I mean, obviously there's other guys in that, but you get the whole point. Let's talk about the excitement. I know it's a narrative we heard a lot this week that didn't feel like a Conor McGregor fight week until maybe Wednesday, Thursday. It started building up. We saw a lot more of it. How do you think that is going to, when we get the pay-per-view numbers, how do you think that's going to look? I mean, all right, give me this. Give me how many pay-per-view buys?
Ooh, that's tough to say. I've never been particularly great with, like, if you were to go through the Nolan King archives and try to pick out my guesses on pay-per-view buys.
Let's do this. So Habib was 2.4 million.
Yeah.
That's the all-time record.
Sure.
Cut in half, 1.2 million. Over or under?
I would say over that.
Really?
I think it's going to – I would say 1.5 is what I'm going to say.
So I think that'd be like second or third all time. That'd be up there.
I mean, I think that McGregor still carries that weight. I guess we'll really see, but I think the fact that he hasn't fought for a while, again, it didn't have that buzz like a Habib or a Diaz, or even when he went for a second belt against Alvarez. So who knows? But it's tough to say, man. Honestly, I've never been great at calling this, but I'm going to say over. Maybe not 1.5, but I'm going to say over 1.2. All
right, that's bold. That's a lot of people. And in that case, then it's still no doubt that Conor's the biggest star, and there's still a big gap between him and everybody else. Let's talk about he's fought at 170. You think he's better at 155 or 170? Like, should he stay at 170 or should he go back to 155? If you're the matchmaker, let's not talk about who next. But actually, let's talk. Say you're his coach. He comes to you, Nolan, you're my man. Where should I fight? What are you saying? You saying 155, 170?
I would say 170. Honestly, I think that he looked a lot healthier there. He dispatched of a guy that has had success at 170. It's not like he was just taking on Nate Diaz in a lightweight fight at 170 pounds. Cerrone has had some success at that weight class. So I think that, if I'm him, here's the thing too. There's a lot of unfinished business at 155 that's going to be there regardless of what happens. Like, say Habib loses his belt, like a year from now, that fight is something that you can make. Same thing with Nate Diaz. You can make that fight tomorrow, and I don't think a ton of people would complain. So I think if he goes out there, it would be the best thing for his stock. It would be the least risky thing for his stock to fight at 170 going forward. If he loses to Masvidal or he loses to Usman, all right, he's going to go back down. And he's going to fight smaller guys again. He's going to have that power, and he's going to. I just feel like that's a better narrative than if he goes back down. It's still either way. I think it's a win-win, but I just think that it would be better for him to stick at 170 just with the way a loss would necessarily be viewed.
So any concern, like you mentioned that he fought Nate Diaz at 170. That's a guy who, he spent majority of his career at 155 fighting at 170. Cerrone's a guy who spent a lot of time at 170. What about the true welterweights when he gets matched up against a Kamaru Usman, against a Colby Covington, a Leon Edwards, a Tyron Woodley? Do you think that matters then when he's going against, not a blown-up lightweight, but a guy who cuts down to 170?
Yeah, I mean, I think stylistically, those matchups, when you just listed off, there was like one word that popped through my head every time. Every name you just named, which was like wrestler. Yeah, exactly, wrestler. And I don't think any of those guys would necessarily want to stand and trade with McGregor at any level. So yeah, maybe that is something that he has to take in consideration is those matchups, try to get your mojo back. Because I mean, if you look at lightweight, it's the opposite, with the exception of Habib. I mean, you got a wrestler, you got Ferguson who does all sorts of funky stuff. You have Gaethje who's going to want to trade with them. So yeah, I mean, maybe there's pluses and minuses of both of these. I think this is a good problem to have. Sometimes we have weight classes that we have bad problems trying to figure out where a guy should go. So to have this openness and have more, a positive no matter where you go, and he always has a fallback plan that will be just as exciting. So that's a good point by you, and I think the style matchups should be something that he considers.
All right, so we're out of time. I only got one more minute, but I got to ask the question that everyone always says. As soon as a guy wins, what's the first question everyone asks is, well, who's next? Dana White said in the press conference he wants that Habib fight. He thinks it's going to be massive. He compared it to Ali Frazier. It sounds like the public wants the BMF bout. They want Conor versus Masvidal. If you were the matchmaker, I got 30 seconds. Who are you putting Conor against next?
If I'm the matchmaker, I'm putting Conor against Masvidal, and I'll tell you why. I think that with Kamaru Usman possibly on the shelf a little bit, there were some rumors today about like a potential injury that he'd be out a little longer. I mean, we're going to sit around and wait and see what happens with Habib and Ferguson, and then potentially run into an issue where Habib has to wait out longer because of Ramadan, all this stuff. I think McGregor wants to fight now, and I think that this might be the fight to do that. What fight is more popular than this one? I mean, Habib matchup would be big, but I think the Masvidal fight would be another level. It would be one of those kind of sideshow fights that would be a little bit bigger than the sport, transcend the sport like the BMF title. So I mean, just on timing, that's what makes sense to me.
Plus, we haven't seen it. Anyways, there you have it, guys. That's Nolan King, MMAJunkie. Nolan, thanks so much, man.
Of course, man. Anytime.
Welcome back to the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. This is the MMA Takeover with Keith Shillan. I am the host, Keith Shillan. I want to thank Nolan King from MMAJunkie. He was just on in the last segment. He's a very wise man, gave some great insight into his thoughts on UFC 246. I agree with a lot of things he said. Make sure you follow him, check all of his work over at MMAJunkie. So in this final segment, I want to take a chance to play a little matchmaker with Conor McGregor. If you look at any of the build-up to the fight beforehand, it seemed like I think they talked about on media day there was 187 media members who got press passes. I think that's got to be the highest number ever. I don't remember it ever being that high. A lot of international, and I'm sure there was a lot of Irish ones in different countries in Europe and whatnot. But one of the ongoing storylines was that it seemed like everyone was already looking past Donald Cerrone and asking, well, Conor, when you get past Donald, who are you going to fight next? I mean, they had Jorge Masvidal there doing media scrums. Seemed like they were trying to set that up. They had Kamaru Usman during the broadcast when Conor won. The cameras were showing Jorge Masvidal. They were showing Kamaru Usman. Guys like Justin Gaethje tweeted about Conor afterwards. Guys like Nate Diaz. I don't think he specifically said Conor, but he tweeted. Manny Pacquiao tweeted something, hoping to get a boxing match against Conor. Again, Floyd Mayweather tweeted out almost like a fight poster of them, rematch. So. And then in the post-fight press conference, they asked Conor about a lot of people who he should fight next, who you want to fight next, and he said, "It's not about who, but when." And he said, "I'm gonna look at the calendar." He first threw out March. That looks like that time frame is already set. Obviously, April is set, so maybe May. Maybe we're looking at May. Though they already have. I think that one's in. It's somewhere in Brazil. That's the one that they're putting together. Henry Cejudo and Jose Aldo. So maybe June we're looking at. At that point, you might even go to July to International Fight Week. I don't think he's going to wait that long. It sounds like he wants to be active. But a lot of questions, a lot of opinions. So I came up with 12 people. I actually have 11 because one's a scenario based. So I'm going to say I decided to rank them. Now this list is not who I think will get the shot. This is who I would be. If I'm the matchmaker, if I'm the UFC president, if I'm Dana White, if I'm Sean Shelby, and Dana comes to me and says, Keith, you're in charge. You're making the matches, whoever you want. Well, here's my 12 options, 1 through 12. So number 12 is the fight that Dana White says he wants to make. It's a fight he says it makes sense. It's the only fight he stressed. He said it before, and he kind of doubled down. He wants to see the rematch between Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, I don't want to see that yet. Dana White said he thinks it could be a legendary rivalry up there with Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier or something like that. Now, obviously, Conor would need to win to kind of really make the rivalry. But the reason why I don't want it is for two reasons. One, it's a terrible style of matching. While Conor looked fantastic against Donald Cerrone, when we talked about the first segment, and we actually talked about it with Nolan, is that it's a good stylistic matchup. There was areas that he had a big advantage of. Well, until Conor shows that he can stop the takedowns, especially the takedowns of Khabib, I wouldn't feel comfortable taking Conor. I don't see how that fight would be any different. So I think it's a terrible matchup. And then the other thing is we just saw it. There's, Khabib's champion, arguably the best division in MMA. And do we really want to see him just run it back with Conor this soon? So my number 12 is Khabib. My number 11 is a guy that I expect to be much higher on other people's lists. He's not going to be on mine. My number 11, instead of Conor getting a title fight at lightweight, my number 11 guy is if he got a title fight at welterweight against Kamaru Usman. Now, Kamaru Usman did scrums. He was asked about Jorge Masvidal. He was saying, "Who's that?" Pretend like he didn't know him. But when Conor, he actually answered questions. And he said, like, "Oh, he doesn't want to smoke," and he really is pushing it. He wants to get a big payday. But there's two reasons why I don't want to see that matchup. Again, it's a stylistic bad matchup. You got an NCAA wrestler who could take a very similar strategy that Chad Mendes tried. They did well in early. The strategy that Habib did, get the takedowns, maul him on the ground. And Kamaru Usman's much, much bigger than Conor. I mean, Conor's guys moving up to welterweight. Kamaru Usman is a true welterweight. He's a guy who has to cut away. He's a big dude. I met him at Mohegan Sun in Bellator, and he is a large man. And obviously he has a high level wrestling now. There's a guy who's improving his striking. I say what you want about Colby Covington. Colby Covington had some success on the feet, even though he ended up getting his jaw broken. He had some success. There's a little bit of backstory with Conor. I think the whole Ali Abdelaziz being the Usman's manager. Obviously he's Habib's manager too, but there's bad blood there that they could do. But I don't like the idea of Conor jumping the line. You have Jorge Masvidal away, and you have Leon Edwards if he gets by Tyra Woodley, who's ahead of him. You can even make an argument that Colby Covington, based on how close that fight was, could get a rematch before him. I just don't like Conor jumping the line because he beat Donald Cerrone, who I'm not even sure is even ranked in the welterweight rankings. He may be. I don't have it in front of me. My number 10 guy is a fight that I don't think will happen, but he's right there and he doesn't have an opponent, and there is some history, and that's Dustin Poirier. This is a guy that challenged for the title, a guy that beat Max Holloway, got the interim title, challenged for the title, obviously lost to Habib, but had moments. Like, he actually hurt. I shouldn't say hurt, but he landed some good shots. Yeah, he went for that guillotine choke. There was bad blood between these two guys. They fought once. Conor got the knockout. It's a fight that Poirier's been dying to get back. If Conor, he sounds like he's very willing to bounce back before welterweight and lightweight. I still think it's a really good stylistic matchup for Conor McGregor. It would get a lot of two-fight, which would really, really increase the buzz. I think there'd be a little bit of trash talking too, which I think I kind of want with Conor. So that's my number 10. One thing I forgot to do is whether I think Conor would win or lose those matches. So I want to add that. So my number 12 was Habib. I would take Habib to win. Number 11 would be Usman. I take Usman to win. Now, if you ask me who has a better chance of beating Conor, Habib, or Usman, I'd actually go with Habib again, because Usman, I don't think he has as good of a shot as Habib. I think he kind of uses his striking where to get inside to shoot he can't shoot from as far as range as Habib does, so he'd have to kind of get in the danger zone with Conor, and with his accuracy and power, he could take him out. Number 10 guy with Dustin Poirier, I like Conor in that fight. So I guess to my number 9 guy. Now this is kind of similar to the Dustin Poirier guy that Conor's already faced, and that's Max Holloway. Now, Max Holloway, he's coming off a loss, so I think a lot of people, that's why he's a little lower on my list. Like, can you justify getting such a big fight coming off? But there's a reason why I do like it. Well, first of all, they faced each other, but they were both young. Even Conor was young. I think Holloway was 21 years old, so I mean, he's obviously, both guys are much better fighter than they are. I just love the style. I mean, both guys are long. Conor has big power. Holloway has like a high volume style. Holloway's a guy that he works off his cardio, which has always been a problem for Conor. He'd be one guy that is a tough stylistic matchup with Conor without being a wrestler. He's a guy that may be able to stand with Conor and be a problem. And the other thing is it brings new freshness to Max Holloway. Max Holloway coming off the loss, this guy that he's struggled with weight cut. He's wanted to move up in the past. He wanted to, he was supposed to challenge Habib for the lightweight title. He did face Dustin Poirier for the interim title. And now coming off a loss of Alex Volkanovski, I think there's other guys who deserve the title shot. I think, the Korean Zombie, Yair Rodriguez to beat Magovich, Sharapov. These are guys that deserve the title shots. I don't like the immediate rematch with Alex Volkanovski. I hope Volkanovski does not give him. I know he's getting a little crap by saying he doesn't deserve a rematch. I agree with Alex Volkanovski, so that's why I like Poirier. But it's still pretty low on my list. So it's number 9. Who would I pick to win? Whew, that's a close one. But Conor is such a student of the game, and I think he would see how Volkanovski was so successful against him, and he would find ways to mimic him or expose. He'd see something in Holloway, so I'd go with Conor in that. My number 8 guy is another. This is not a likely opponent, but I think it'd be a lot of fun for one reason only, and that's Colby Covington. Conor's at welterweight. He's trying to get into contention. Colby's coming off a loss, but very good showing for Colby. Colby has trash talked Conor a little bit, but there hasn't been too much fuel, set to that fire. But I just want to see the trash talk with these two. And Colby, while he obviously is a phenomenal wrestler, he's kind of has a similar style where he has to use his high volume striking to get inside, and that is danger against Conor. But Colby is relentless. Conor's not going to be able to breathe. If he doesn't land early, he's going to be in trouble. So, based on the wrestling and the cardio, and hope. No, I shouldn't say hoping, but if I picked him, I'd be hoping. But guessing that Conor wouldn't catch his chin, I'd go with Covington. But the biggest reason why I want to see the fight is imagine the trash talk, imagine the Twitter battles, and all that stuff. And there's no way Conor can be shaking his hand and stuff, like he's been doing to Donald Cerrone. Colby Covington would really drag out the bag I am. So now here comes my number 7. And this is where people are going to disagree with me. This is where people are going to lose their mind. I would say this is the people's pick. This is the guy that the majority of fans seem they want to do. And that's Jorge Masvidal. I have a Jorge Masvidal as my 7th pick for a couple reasons. I think Jorge Masvidal deserves a title shot. I think you have 2 stars right now between Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal. Now, a lot of people say, well, put 2 stars together and you have a bigger fight. Well, I would think if I'm running a business, I want the 2 stars away from each other. So instead of having one mega fight in June, say I put Conor on the June card and Jorge on a July card. No, instead of having one mega fight in June, I have a mega, a little lesser big mega fight, but a big, huge fight in June and a big, huge fight in July. So I can have back-to-back huge pay-per-view sales. But also, I feel like imagine if Jorge won the belt against Kamaru Usman and then he fought Conor. How much bigger is that fight? Or, I feel like you could kind of build up the star a little bit. And Conor, I feel like needs to get one more win to get the hype that he's back. Okay, he didn't just beat Donald Strong, he beat another guy. He's kind of on a roll. So that's why. Now, who would win if they do put that together? This is such a good fight. Whew. It is such stylistic. I mean, the clean boxing of Jorge, good power. When he baptized Conor, with Conor crushing on the left hand, it is so close. Jorge does have a big size advantage. Oh, man. Coin toss that one. I'm going to go with Conor, I guess, but I can easily be persuaded, and that's one of those ones I'd have to put like a pin on and be like, hey, I'll give you a pick, but this is not my official pick. I want to do tape study on these guys, and that's a very fascinating matchup, which means I probably have a little too low based on that. So my number 6 and my number 5 go together. So my number 6 and number 5 is the same person, but different scenarios. So number 6 is Tony Ferguson if he beats Habib, and number 5 is Tony Ferguson if he loses. Now, if Tony Ferguson beats Habib, the division's wide open. You throw Conor back in there, he's right in the title mix. Just in case he's in the title mix, who knows? So I think it's such a fun style between Conor and Tony. Based on Tony Conor even said this. Tony can get hurt. He's been hurt several fights. I mean, Anthony Pettis hurt him. Kevin Lee had him mounted. Lando Fanata came in on like a week's notice and hurt him multiple times. Edson Barbosa was doing well against him. But Tony has incredible heart, incredible cardio, incredible will to win. Even RDA had everyone remembers rounds 2 through 5 where Tony's piecing up. RDA had a very good round 1 against him. So that based on being how hittable he is and how hard Conor hits, that would be a big issue. But if you know how we talked about if Donald Cerrone can survive the first round, imagine if Tony could. We've never seen anybody who fights the cardio with Tony, the craziness and spinning things, and so that would be such a fun one. No, the reason why I put the loss over the win is I think Khabib beats him, and 2, I think Justin Gaethje deserves that title fight over Conor. So that's why I'd rather see Conor face Tony if he's coming off a loss, and give Gaethje the title fight. So that's my number 5. So that's 6 and 5. So that gets to number 4. Now, number 4 was a fight that I wasn't very interested in, but Conor's interested in. And now I'm like, actually makes sense. Conor, and it's funny because John Franklin asked me this on the All Angles, which is, if you have never checked out, it's my favorite podcast. Even above this, it's my favorite podcast. So it's the thing that me and John Franklin do. We do it once a month. We cover the UFC pay-per-view main event. We spend roughly about 2 hours and we cover every single possible angle you think of a fight. So we did that with, breaking down each fighter's, making a prediction at the end, blah, blah, blah. We did this thing. And John Franklin asked me, well, last question is, who does Conor call out? And I said, he calls out Jorge Masvidal. Well, who would have guessed that his call out, the only call out he would do in the cage with Joe Rogan, would actually be Paul Felder. So my number 4 is going to be the winner of Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker. The reason why this is, I think, is both guys a very beatable fight. Though Hooker's length, I would favor Hooker more. I think I would give Hooker a better shot at beating Conor, though I would take Conor to beat both of them. But what I like about it is Conor talked about saying that, he's still Russ. He still wants to build his name up. He wants to get back to it, not rushing it. It's a season. He has a plan A, B, C, D. Like by the time he gets to D, that's when he's entitled, like not leapfrogging in. So it'd be a little, obviously it's a very tough test with both guys, but it's a little bit more of a warm up. So I think that's a good idea. Like to get another tough fight, get that. Get the rust off, make yourself feeling good, get the fan base back. So my number 4 is Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker. So now we're going to my number 3. And my number 3 was a guy that this is like, I should say that I should put these in tiers because my top 3 I thought about, they're all kind of could be number 1, they all could be number 3. So, and they all obviously could be number 2. So I struggled on which rank to put them in. But my number 3 guy is Justin Gaethje. So the positive is why that matchup. 1, they've had some bad blood. They've been going at it on Twitter, especially from Justin Gaethje. Gaethje wants that fight bad. He seems like he wants it more than a title fight, even though he says he wants a title fight more. His Twitter reactions and his Twitter post doesn't seem that way. It is such a fantastic style of matchup. Now, Gaethje is a guy kind of like Tony, not in the style he fights, but his hit ability. This guy's been hurt. I mean, Eddie Alvarez knocked him out or get a win over him. Dustin Poirier, Michael Johnson rocked him. Like he's going to get hit, but he's going to bring the pressure. He's going to bring the style. He's pure violence, and there's a reason why he wins every single performance bonus when he fights. It's going to be a fun fight. Plus, there's also that wild card. Justin Gaethje was an NCAA wrestler. So he could, we could see Justin Gaethje actually go to his wrestling, which we never see. So it's such a good fight. The reason why it's number 3 is if Conor and Gaethje fight each other, they leave Tony and Khabib on the sideline for a long time because they fight in April, and then Gaethje and Conor say they fight in June. You think the earliest turnaround after that would be September, October. So you'd be, Khabib and Tony would be sitting for a long time, which Khabib would probably be okay because Ramadan's coming up after his fight. But just in case, I don't like them having to wait for him. I always like the champion have to wait for the challenger. So that's why it's my 3. Now, my number 2 out of every single person on the list is probably my least likely. It's a guy that would have to come out of retirement, and it's George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre may be the greatest fighter of all time. I have a number 2 behind John Jones. He's a guy that he's talked about coming out of retirement for Khabib. It sounds like it's the only fight he's interested in. But, Conor McGregor can get anybody interested. Dana White said that there's always a fun person to fight Conor, and I think George St. Pierre fits in that. There's 2 reasons. One, George seems like he only cares about his legacy right now. Capturing the lightweight title would do a lot of things, but so would beating Conor McGregor, the biggest star in history sport. It gives him the biggest paycheck he's ever had, of course, which is a good incentive. But I didn't even say back to the Gaethje versus Conor, who I would take to win. I would pick Conor to win that fight. But it is a tough matchup, tough one to pick. Back to George St. Pierre. If George St. Pierre asks himself who's a better stylistic matchup for him, Khabib or Conor, the answer is Conor. I mean, George St. Pierre was always known for his ability to take fighters down and control them on the ground, and that's where Conor would struggle. But imagine the pay-per-view sales of George St. Pierre came out of retirement to face Conor McGregor. He and Conor actually trash talk like Michael Bisping did and took it to another level that Bisping's doesn't have the ability to do. I think that would be fun. Who would I pick between George St. Pierre and Conor McGregor? It's hard to pick George St. Pierre fights because he's been out for so long and we don't really know what we're getting with him. Even after facing Mike Bisping a couple years ago, it's still another big, long layoff. But George St. Pierre's wrestling is just so good. I'm going to have to go with George St. Pierre, which leads me to my number 1 pick. I think it's time to do the trilogy fight with Nate Diaz. The reason why I think it needs to be done is they're running out of time. Nate seems disinterested in fighting. He seems like if he is going to fight, he only wants that kind of fight. I wasn't that impressed with the fight against Eddie Pettis. I saw a guy slowing, and then when we saw him against Jorge Masvidal, I saw a guy who was slowing majorly and showing huge signs of aggression. So I think Conor could get that fight and really impress. I think it would help him obviously win the trilogy. There's a lot of fans who don't believe he won the second fight, so that would end that debate. And I just think it's a perfect stylistic matchup for Conor. So put all that together, I think that's the fight, and he needs to get it now. And then obviously it do huge major sales. The trash talk will be off the charts, and it would get him his second win in a row in the division. I think it should be done at 170 based on the first 2 fights being at 7. So that makes, to me, I think that's no sense. So there's my order. Let's just recap real quick. 12 is Khabib Nurmagomedov, 11 Kamaru Usman, 10 Dustin Poirier, 9 Max Holloway, 8 Colby Covington, 7 Jorge Masvidal, 6 Tony Ferguson in a win, 5 Tony Ferguson in a loss, 4 the winner of Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker, 3 Justin Gaethje, 2 George St. Pierre, and 1 Nate Diaz. So if you tell me what you think of my list, I'm sure Jorge Masvidal will be the top pick, and people would not like how low I had him very low on the list. Send me your list. Tell me how you rank those 12, or give me your own 12. You don't have to pick those 12. Send it to me. Reach out to me on Twitter or send me an email, KeithShillan7 @gmail, and let me know what you think. That's all we have for this week's MMA Takeover. We'll be back on Friday. Before we get out of here, I want to thank the great Nolan King of MMAJunkie for coming on, sharing his thoughts, and of course, I want to thank the listeners for listening. And make sure you're back. And of course, check out all their other shows on the MMA Takeover. I don't have much time. I have the closing seconds, so I got to get out of here. I can't name the shows, but we have the best team. Make sure you check out all those. Subscribe, like, share, do all that stuff that you would. You can find all the Loudmouth MMA podcast stuff all our shows everywhere you can find podcasts. Change our to there. All right, thanks for listening. Bye.